Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have an overview of the Iceburg leader from the third set of the One Piece card game. He's pretty unique, and it's kind of the purple leader and archetype for this entire set as well. So really interesting in there. And real quick before we get started, first we're just going to go over a couple of the cards, and then we're going to have 3 example deck lists at the end. But also, if you guys appreciate these videos that I've been doing for set 3, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You guys won't regret it, and we do have some more set 3 content coming up, as well as tournament results and everything else once it finally releases here in North America. But getting on into the Iceburg, and it's what the Gallery Law Company and Water 7, everything like that, the whole purple stuff we have in this set. We do have the leader itself, so pretty unique. It's a 5k 5 life purple leader, so that part's not unique, but it has this leader cannot attack. This is not in attack leader, can only be on defense, so you would have to think its effect would have to be pretty good for that. And it has the effect of activate main for Dawn -1. You get to rest this leader, and then you get to play up to 1 character with the Gallery Luck Company type with a cost of 5 or less from your hand. So being able to play a 5 cost on turn 1, you have to unramp a Dawn, but is pretty strong. It's obviously restricted to the archetype, so they can kind of balance that a little bit. But on the surface, it means you do get a lot of early tempo from this deck because you're able to do that. And then you kind of get to have some. It's a unique gameplay in a lot of ways, which is really interesting. Which also means it's a little polarizing as of a deck. And honestly, it's unique, which is not doesn't mean unique good all the time. It definitely has some weaknesses and can struggle, especially into the late game if your opponent gets there. But again, it's been a really interesting challenge for me to kind of tackle what's the best way to play this leader and put it together, and it's been a lot of fun to play too. So that's how the leader works, and let's kind of go into some of the cards for it. So we have our starter cards. So we have Korokoro, just our searcher on play. Look at top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Water 7 type card other than Korokoro. Add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So obviously flexible for other archetypes as well, or just the Water 7 engine in general. But definitely, most of the, I think every of the Galila company has Water 7 as well, so pretty much searcher for everything else. And then we have the event stage that we have right here, the gallery company. So activate main, you may rest the stage if your leader is Iceburg. You add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and rest it. So it's an Onigashima Island for the archetype, which is quite good in the fact that we do have a lot of effects that do just give like a Dawn -1. So being able to get like a free version of that in this one is very good there. And then we also have Khalifa, which isn't like the best starter outright, but it can potentially help you find the pieces you need. You can play it on turn 1 with the leader effect. It's a 4 cost 4k. It's a 2k counter, as well as when attacking Dawn -1, you get to draw 2 and discard 1. So pretty great, the fact that you get that extra draw right there too. It's +1, and if you have like extra copies of like the Galley of the Company or any other cards you don't need, it's good to recycle there. So pretty solid card in its own right too. So and then we're going to go into our staple 5 drops. I'd say these ones are the ones that you care about the most. So we have Rob Lucci. So all these are 5 drop 6Ks, which are nice with 1K counters. This has a 1 attacking Dawn -1. You get to rest up one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 5 or less. We also have Kaku as well. Same kind of effect, but it gets banished for this turn, so it can be really good for early game pressure. And we also have a Towel Stone, which has, if your leader has the Gallery Company type, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and rest it on the KO. So that means like on early pressure, if your opponent wants to try to get rid of this guy, you get to ramp back the Dawn that you essentially use to play it outright, which is pretty cool. Next up we have the other 5 drops and Luffy, just to fit him into the slide. But we have Lulu here. We get to add 1 Dawn from our Dawn deck and rest it when attacking with the Dawn -1. So he's a 5 drops 5k, unlike all the others, which are 6Ks, but being able to use the Dawn ×1 to be able to get the Dawn back can be pretty nice. You just have to be, able to have flexibility with the Dawn, which again is a little bit trickier with this archetype in general. We also have Polly here, so I don't really know how I feel about him in general. He's kind of bricky at sometimes, and it's hard to play him optimally too. So he's a 5 drop 6k again, but on play for 2 Dawn additionally. So it's like if you play him for 7. You get to add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set up as active. Then if you have 8 or more Dawn in play, you get to KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 4 or less. So it's a little bit tricky to do that, so you'd have to have like 7 Dawn when you play him, and then use 7 Dawn to go up to 8, and then use the effect to get the pop. So it's just kind of tricky to do that. I think he's just better this early game to use the 2, if you have like a floating 2 Dawn to get like two, a Dawn back and a set of his active mode too. So it's technically only like one floating dawn. Like you only like lose one dawn anyway, so it's not too costly for that. And you will realize that like if you play this deck, your dawn's a lot more flexible. It's going in and out of the dawn deck a lot more than a lot of other decks. So interesting deck. I would not play this card at 4. I don't think he's that good, and he's again no counter cost. He's a little clunky. And then we also have the Monkey D. Luffy. So on play dawn -1. You can trash character at the cost of exactly 5 to get Rush for the turn. So I think he's neat. He's just the fact that he's a card with Rush is kind of important in a lot of ways, and you could be running this in I think what Magellan perhaps. Like this isn't leader locked in any way. I think he could be better in that because it does have a good amount of 5Ks or 5 drops in that deck too. At least Magellan's a 5 drop, but it stinks that it's exactly a 5. If it was 5 or more, I think it would be a little bit more flexible, but it's a little rough for this guy. It's just like it's just like it doesn't have like any archetype that goes with it either. It's just okay for what it is. Since Water 7 outside of Galleryla is not a real archetype right now. Anyways, so those are those cards. I wouldn't, Lulu's probably the best of them if you want to run at 4 perhaps. Polly again, you probably run like 2 or 3 copies. Luffy I don't think you play in this deck, but I did want to mention it because it was somewhat in the archetype. And blockers, and I think this is like the biggest issue with this deck right now is that you really want to have some blockers get to play for free, and you simply can't. So we have like Zumbai here, which is Water 7, but it's not a Gallery Law, which is too bad because it's a Dawn -1 on play. If your leader has Water 7, you get to draw a card and it's a blocker, but it's also 2K, which are just incredibly easy to get. Like both these blockers that are quote unquote in archetype are just so easy to get rid of. They're very easy to get rid of, and they just don't offer a lot for you. So I don't like the idea of these guys as much. If anyone, it'd be Chibney, just because it's a cheap 2K and as a counter. Because Zombai doesn't have a counter. Like the draw is super good. So to have a 3 like a 2K blocker with no counter and blocker, and then for only 1 leader in the game, that you can't even play this for free off the Iceburg. You can lose a Dawn to draw a card. Like it's incredibly overbalanced. I don't think the card's good, unfortunately. And we also do have one more of the Iceberg here. This is coming out of set 4, but just a little preview that we do have some potential further support for. It's a 1-drop that essentially, if you Dawn -1, you're able to give it self blockers. So I think that's good. I think that's good for like what the deck is. The fact that it's in the archetypes and you're able to like use it as a blocker if needed, I think is helpful enough. So I think that's going to help the deck out a lot moving forward, but we don't have it right now. And then lastly, we have events. Technically, only one of them is a Gallery Law, but we'll just talk about all of them because they're all usable in this one. So we have Gum Gum Jet Gatling. We pretty much see this card in a bunch of other decks. Just so you can discard 1 card from your hand up to one of your leader characters gain plus 3K power during the battle, and also trigger add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So I think this is honestly a pretty okay card. We have a bunch of cards that are just kind of dead in hand, and being able to use it for that, and also being able to use it for like some early ramp if they hit it out of your life is pretty good. We also have Whole Dismantler Slash, so a 1 for Dawn -1. If your leader has Water 7 type, KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 2 or less. So unfortunately, like this would I think be a really good card in like a purple black, like in Zephyr, but a Zephyr, I'm pretty sure Zephyr doesn't have Water 7, unfortunately. So you're not able to use it that. So 2 or less is a little bit not good enough for me in a lot of ways. It could be good if you want to tech it in for maybe some blockers, or if you're having a hard time against like Trafalgar Law or something, you could, but like I don't think this card's super worth it. And then also we have Top Knot, which is technically the Gallery La Company for event card for this one, but main Dawn -2, return up to one of your opponent's characters, cost of 4 or less to the bottom of its owner's deck. So it's a little bit costly on the Dawn minus effect, but being able to use it to get rid of something 4 or less, I think is okay. Again, like both these cards would be really good in a deck that you can reduce the cost of your opponent's cards, and I think Top Knot could probably be good in Zephyr, to be honest. It works a little bit well with your your effects that you're already using with Zephyr, so it's just a little costly for Dawn minus, and I think Zephyr feels the same way with it, but that is the idea there. And that's all the cards we want to talk about for this archetype independently, and let's go to the deck lists. And going into deck list, I have these three here for you guys. And this one is not my own. This is one that I found that did well. There are not a lot of lists I've seen do well with this leader, unfortunately, at least in the Asian metas. But this one is Jacol and linked to One Piece top decks as well. This is where I found this one list. But it's kind of interesting in what it does. I think there's some good tech cards for it that when I saw this list, I tested it out. I got some ideas, and I kind of split it up to a film version and also an Impel down version for both of them. As you can see, Purple kind of has some flexibilities in both of them. We have like a bunch of like mini engines in purple in general that we can kind of get for. And right now, I don't think the Water 7 is good enough as it is to just support itself in this leader. So kind of have to do some half-baked, which we'll see in this one too. It's a little half-baked in its own way. So some adds. We do have a bunch of 2K counters, which obviously needed. Some Magellan. Magellan is pretty unique to purple in the fact that you do get some Dawn ramping on your opponent's side, so being able to use it first is pretty good. In general, how I've been playing these decks, and you guys can tell me in the comments if it's wrong, turn one you like to go into like a Koro, and you like to go first with this deck, I think a little bit more, just so you can kind of have more of the tempo, especially like if you drop something like a Kaku turn one on your opponent, you have a 6k banish coming at your face next turn if you're not careful, so some pretty good pressure on there. But then also being able to just get some additional pressure off, like a Rob Lucci. I think Rob Lucci being able to pressure down any cards that your opponent plays early game is good too. So I think both are good. But being able to do like turn one Koro, and then if you don't use the Dawn Minus effect, which sometimes you don't want to, especially if you have something not super good, you can play the Gallery Low Company for on turn two if you find it. So being able to use that for 3 Dawn, and then after that you're able to be at 5 Dawn at the start of your turn, even if you use your leader effect. So you go up to 4, use the Dawn Minus, play something, go to 5, and then you can do something like play Magellan, and then after you play Magellan, you're able to Dawn Minus on there, then you're able to use your stage again to get the Dawn back, and then play another one of your guys. So it's good tempo, good management there. I think that's something that can be very strong in this deck. So and then anything else, I think the Queen blocker is absolutely needed in this deck. And there's just so many times where you want to be able to play a 5 cost, and like it's paying 5 for something outright in this deck is a little expensive based on how it works. So you really want to have to play the Queen, which is why like I think the highest end cards are the King and the Guild Tessera, which this card's honestly pretty good for the deck too, in a deck that really doesn't care about losing the Dawn at the end of the attack. Like drawing 2 is a really good effect, so which is kind of part of the reason I'm like, yeah, let's make a film version of this deck, see how it goes. So this is their list, Jacol's, and congratulations on doing well with this. Probably a couple months ago at this point, but for helping me inspire my own list too. So this is his list there, and then also here's my film list, which I think this is of the 2 that I made. This is the one I like a little bit more. I think that it has a lot of strengths to it, and it can be helpful in a lot of ways. So we do have the other thing is that we have an additional 1-drop that we can play to help find some cards. So we have Buena Vista right here, which being able to use it to find any film type card. So we can add cards such as our Shiki, which is a 2K counter. We can find Karina, we can find Uta, we can find our Guild, and we can also find our Lion's Threat Emperor's Imperial Earthbind as well. So good amount of targets, so we can get some early card advantage and play it early. And then also we have I really like Karina. I don't know if this is just like a bad card, but it kind of does what you need it to do. So you play it for 2, you rest this character. You may trash 1 film type card from your hand. If your opponent has more Dawn than you add 2 Dawn cards from your Dawn deck and rest them, which is really easy to do in this deck because you do Dawn Minus as much as you do, and it's very easy to be behind your opponent. So using this effect to get it back, paying it for 2 is not too bad, and you're going to have a good amount of film cards that are probably just dead in hand, potentially like Guild or Lion's Threat. So being able to get the 2 Dawn, and then your opponent's going to want to try to maybe pressure this down instead, which means that it's kind of like a pseudo blocker in a lot of ways. So I like the idea of it. Being able to get 2 Dawn back is a great investment, especially since you have to pay 2 for this, but then it just opens up like a turn 5, like a 5 Dawn play next turn if you really need to. So I highly recommend I like this deck. I think it's cool. So Uta is also just a good blocker, being able to go essentially a double block if needed, and can also mess up your opponent's one-drop blockers or like their Marcos if they're not careful with their sequencing, which is great. And then we already have Queen, as said, because the card's great. And then Go to Zero. I might try to find room for a fourth one of these. He's really good. He's really good when you need him to. Being able to draw two is a really great effect. So I don't have a lot of space for this, and honestly, we don't have a lot of Water 7 cards to play off for leader. We only have the 12 of them, but I may be tempted to remove a Tile Stone, add another one of these, just for the fact of being able to, the draw two is great for him, and also just another pitch target for Karina, and another fine target from Buena Vista. I think it's kind of worth it. So we also have Lion Threat, Imperial Earthbind, so Dawn -2, which is not too costly in this deck. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, so pretty good removal there. And the trigger is just add one Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active, which is a little bit disappointing that it doesn't have like a KO effect associated with it, but it's fine. And it can be useful if needed to, but there's that. We also aren't running any counters, which might be wrong, but I've played, there's not a film counter, unfortunately, which if there was like a 1 or 2 drop version of it, I think I'd definitely put it in, but I never really found, you just really don't have time to put Dawn open to use it. The 2 Dawn that you would leave open for something like Hell's Judgment, I feel like could have been used better on like more aggressive plays. So it's kind of weird from that kind of sense. So anyways, this is my film version, and to wrap it up, we do have our last version. So this is the Impel down version I've been working on, and this one's okay. I think it's a little, quote unquote obvious for how you put this together, just in the fact that you want it for the effects of like Magellan on curve is still a very good card. A lot of decks do care about getting to the late game on certain Dawn amounts, which means that if you're able to play this, it means that they are behind their curve, which means it can buy you another turn. And it also means they just never want to get rid of this guy, which is great. So I think that's helpful there. Hell's Judgment, as I said, it's a little bit rough of a card in the sense like it's good on defense, but then you just have to leave that 2 open. I feel like that's always just a trap, and it's dead in hand. You don't have anything to use it for, so I feel like it just wasn't working out for me when I was using this guy. And then additionally, we have Hannibal, we have Domino as a 2-drop blocker, which is fine. It's a little easy to remove, but it's fine for what it is too, and just kind of everything else from there. So I don't have much more to say to this. I think this is quote unquote like a more obvious build for it, and people have been trying to put Impel down and a couple things. We also have Sadie, which is a 2K counter, but this one I'm just okay with. I'm not as happy with this one. Again, I really do like the film version, and it's been working well. So anyways, this is my overview of the Iceburg leader in set 3. Let me know what you guys think about these decks, this archetype, and this leader. If my deck lists are trash, let me know. Give me some better ones in the comments so I can get a little bit better at this leader. And that should be it for me. So that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll catch you all next time.